Well, this is where we are. We have shown the continuity in the momentum equations which were just the same with or without combustion. I haven't told you how to compute the viscosity in the equations. There are rules to do that. That's not the main problem. I don't want to discuss that here. I want to focus now on the equations which are different or which are new compared to what you know. The first one is going to be the specious equation. The second one is going to be the energy equation. The energy equation, there are at least 8 or 10 different forms, and you can find them on the web again. There's a small summary which is called Conservation Equations for Combustion, which summarizes all the conservation equation. But it's even better to read the chapter 1 of the book. That's something you should do at some point. So you can do one of these two things. And then I will present simplification for low-speed flows, which correspond to most cases. But up to here, everything I'm going to say is general and will apply to all flames. So let's start with the specious equations. We need n specious equations. We're going to write the specious equation for the fuel mass fraction. If you multiply the fuel mass fraction by the density, you have the mass of specious K. So this is the quantity for which we write a conservation equation. What does the mass of K do? Well, the mass of K is changing because of different things. It's changing in time because you have convection fluxes. So I'm going to write them this way. Rho Ui U plus Vk Yk. I'm going to say what this guy is here in a few seconds, equal omega dot k. Okay, what's new here? This is something you know. This is the convection. This is new now. This is the diffusion velocity. Of K. And this is the reaction term for K. Okay, so in this equation, it would be, if you take a non-reactive species, okay, you would come back to equations you have seen before. For reacting species, we need to talk about this guy here, and of course, we're going to need to talk about this guy here. You will recognize in a few seconds where this comes from, diffusion velocities. Probably you haven't seen it for the moment. The first thing you want to see here is that you have some constraints. The first constraint is that the sum of all the omega dot k must be 0. Whatever you do, mass is conserved in combustion. If 1 mole of CH4 disappears, you will get the equivalent of mass as CO2, H2, etc., but the mass has to be conserved. So the sum on all the species of the mass must be 0. It's a zero-gain game, okay? You are disappearing, this guy is appearing. On the average, no mass is created or disappears. The second thing you can do here is that if you sum all these equations, if you sum all the specious equations, what do you obtain here? You obtain d over dt of rho sum of the yk, which is going to be unity, plus gradient of rho u sum of the yk, plus rho sum of the vk yk equal sum of omega dot k. And we know that this thing is 0. We know that this thing is 1. And we know that this thing is 1. So you see here that what you obtain is the continuity equation. Because, of course, the sum of the conservation of all elements must give you the conservation of the mean quantities. But you see that this will be true only if this thing is 0. So there is a consistency rule for the diffusion velocities, is that the sum of the vk yk must be equal to 0 from k equal 1 to n. If this is not, if the model we use doesn't do that, we're going to be in trouble. So now, what are the VKs? So as I said, they are diffusion velocities. What does that mean? Diffusion velocities is mainly related at that point for the moment to molecular processes. It means if I put a lot of hydrogen here and there is no velocity in this room, no wind, I put a lot of hydrogen here, over time this hydrogen will collide with other molecules and diffuse slowly to go to the other side of the room. Okay? This happens because there will be a diffusion velocity for the species. At the same time that the hydrogen will go there, some other species will come here. On the average, we need to have some of the VKYK equal to 0. How do we compute that? Well, here you need to read again books on kinetic theory. You can also take a look at the book of Foreman-Williams. Not the easiest one to read, but it contains all the information. I'm just going to write the equation for the diffusion velocities in a simple case, simplified case. So you obtain the diffusion velocities by solving this equation. The gradient of xp, x is the molar fraction, is equal to the sum of k equal 1 to n of xk, xp divided by dkp vk minus vp. Okay, so this is an equation for the vk's. Unfortunately, it's not a direct equation. I will describe that in a second. dkp here is the binary diffusion coefficient of k in p. Or it's the same for p in p in k, it's the same. So dkp is equal to dpk. So again, I don't want to describe this theory here. There are other terms here, like the Dufour effect or things like this. I don't want to describe them here. This is just to give you an idea of how to find the vk's and the vp's. So if you want to find the diffusion velocities, you need to know the gradients of the molar fraction, and you need to solve this equation. This equation is actually not a simple one, it's a matrix. Because you have to write here gradient of x1, gradient of x2, gradient of xn. You have to do that at all the points of your flow. And here you will have v1, v2, vn. And here there will be a matrix, you see, because there's a term in vk in terms of vp, so the matrix will be kind of empty, but still it's a matrix. And this matrix is called the diffusion matrix. And in general, in the most general case, if you want to do diffusion, you need to invert the system. You need to find the velocities as a function of the gradients. And you see it's a complex system because the velocity, the diffusion velocity of a species k depends on all the gradients of all the species. So at that point, what's useful is to do a simple example because usually you've never seen that and you're lost. So let's do an example with n equal 2. Suppose you have only two species. That's a simple case. You have only one species 1 and species 2. So you have a mass function y1 and y2. And the question is, how do you find v1 and v2? The velocities, the diffusion velocities for these two species. Well, you have equations already that you know. You know that v1 y1 plus v2 y2 must be equal to 0. This is this consistency equation. So that's one equation. You need a second one. Well, you need to solve this equation. Let me write this equation for p equal 1. For p equal 1, I will have gradient of x1 equal sum of k equal 1 to 2 of xk xp vk minus vp divided by dkp. I'm going to explode that right away because one of these terms is 0. So let me take the sum out. The first term for 1 will be x1 x2 divided by d12 multiplied by v1 minus v2. And the second one will be v2 minus v2, so it will go away. Actually, it's v2 minus v1. So you see here, if I want the same equation for p equal 2, I get the same equation. I get quad of x2 equal x2 x1 divided by d21 v1 minus v2. But since the gradient of x1 is minus the gradient of x2, you see this equation is only the same. Okay, this is only one equation. So this is one equation, and this is the second one. Now, with these two equations, you can find v1 and v2. That's a good exercise. I'll let you do it at home. Find v1 and v2. By the way, when you do that, be careful. You have to. There is an intermediate step which I'm giving you here. You should find this first. Try to show that first, and then you will get the final answer, which is v1 y1 equal minus d12 gradient of y1. So in the simplest case of only two species, the diffusion velocity is actually a very simple expression. It's given by this value here, where d12 is the binary diffusion coefficient. Which means that, and now you're going to recognize the equations you know. If I want to write this equation here, this one, for species 1, I'm going to have d over dt of rho y1 plus gradient of rho u y1. I put the diffusion velocity on the other side. It will be minus gradient of rho v1 y1 plus omega dot 1. And you see that this thing will actually become gradient of rho d12 gradient of y1, which is an expression that probably you have seen before, because this really looks like a diffusion term now. Okay, it's a second order derivative of the density of the mass fraction. Now this expression here is exact for n equal 2. That means if you're in your flow you have only two species, this result here, which has a name, which actually called Fick's law, and you have seen that before, this expression is exact, no problem. And this is not a useful result as it is, because in combustion we will always have more than two reactants. Usually we have at least 3 or 4. So what do we do if n is larger than 2? Well, in practice, there's one thing you almost never do. We almost never solve this problem. It's just too complicated. And also, there are ways to avoid solving this problem, and those things require books to be described. I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to give you a reference here. For those of you who want to know, or maybe will have to know, if you don't have to, probably you can forget it. There's a very good book by two guys called Ern and Giovangigli. And they describe how to solve this matrix. And they show actually that there are ways to avoid solving it. How do we do that? Well, basically we extend Fick's law. All the solutions we use in all codes all the commercial codes, all the research codes actually all do the same thing. We use an extension of Fick's law. The extension looks like this. We're writing basically Vk, Yk equal minus dk gradient of Yk. So it looks exactly like Fick's law, if you look at it, except the dk here, dk is the diffusion coefficient of k in the mixture and not in one of the other species. You see in Fick's law we had d12. Here we have a decay, and how to compute this decay is another story, and I don't want to go into that. I recommend that you read actually page 15 in the book if you want to know more. But basically the idea is that we are not going to use diffusion matrices in codes. We are going to use right away a simplification which is written like this one. Which means that instead of having this equation here, which looks a little bit complicated, in most codes, when you're going to look at the specious equation, it's going to look like the one I'm going to write now. It's going to be written rho dyk dt. I've replaced these two terms together, equal gradient of rho diffusion coefficient of species k, gradient of yk plus omega dot k. And now, when it's written like this, you see that the expression of the diffusion of the species k is simple. It's like the heat equation. You know, heat equation, here you have a second derivative of the temperature. For the species, it's the same. The species are diffusing because of a gradient of second order of yk. And how to compute that? This is given in the textbooks, given in the codes. I will show you how. We can obtain these things rather easily in practice. Remember still that this is a simplification of the initial problem in which we had much more than that. Okay, that was the easy part. Let's start doing some accounting now to talk about omega dot k. Now you have to imagine what's going on now. We have a flow in which we have n species reacting through m reactions. N is 300, m can be 3000. So we need a way to count what's going on. So it's going to look similar to what I've done 2 hours ago, but now we do it for m reactions, not only for one. If we consider reaction J equal 1 to m, I can write this equation in this form. Reaction J, you can imagine actually if all of you are species here in this room, one reaction is, for example, these two people talking together and producing one guy like this one. But this guy talks to this guy, and together they do two species like this. So we need a way to keep track of what's going on. To do that, we say the reaction J is actually written like this. It's a sum of all the species which are present with a coefficient nu prime kj, because it's the J reaction, multiplied by mk, which is a symbol for the species k. And this thing will react and become sum of 1 to n nu second kj mk. I have put an arrow in both directions because now these reactions can go this way, but they can also go the other way. Temperature goes up, you can have dissociation, this reaction goes both ways. Like before, I'm going to say that nu kj equal nu second kj minus nu prime. If you just write the conservation of mass for an equation like this, you must have the mass of the reactants equal to the mass of the products. So, if I group the two, I have a simple equation saying that the sum of the new Kj Wk must be 0 for all reactions. And again, it's always the same thing. Mass must be conserved. You cannot lose or gain mass through any of the individual reactions. It's fortunate. Now, we need to start talking about speeds. Again, if I take the same picture, if all of you here are species, this person here can be produced by many other reactions. So this molecule can appear through maybe 5, 10, or different other reactions taking place in this room. So omega dot k here, for him, is the sum of all the omega dot kj for all the reactions. If I want to know how much I produce of this molecule, I need to see how much is produced by all the individual reactions, and then I sum that. Simple mass balance. So what is omega kj, omega dot kj? Well, we need to introduce, there's a lot of notation here, but this is chemical descriptions. It's needed, it's not complicated, it's just long. We introduce the rate of progress of reaction J, and we call it Qj. So this is the rate at which this reaction is progressing every second. How many moles, how many times it goes, from left to right or from right to left. So those are moles per second. So there's a simple link between Qj and this guy, which is the following. In terms of mass, the balance of the species K in the reaction J is the advancement of the reaction multiplied by Wk nu Kj. Looks complicated. It's not actually. The Wk is here only because if you have mole, if you want to go to mass, you need to multiply by the mass of the species. And the nu Kj is really doing the balance here. Nu Kj is negative for species which are burnt. It's positive for species which are produced. So you see here that this is the weight which goes here, and you sum all of them, and you get omega dot k. This I know, I need to express this. What is Kj? Qj. Well, Qj, you need to talk to kinetics experts. So if you want to talk about the combustion community, you get basically two big parts there. People like me who are flame people, and people on the other side who are specialists of kinetics. The specialists of kinetics are the guys telling you what to take here. And that's a difficult job. So I'm just going to show you the expression for Qj, which is now accepted by everyone. So it's written like this. Qj is first a constant, depending on the reaction, multiplied by the product on K of all the Nk to the power nu prime K. So that's the rate at which the reaction goes this way. You take the concentration of K to the power nu prime, you multiply all of them, and you put a constant. That's the rate at which reaction progresses in this direction. But since there is a reverse reaction, you have the same expression in the other way, which is minus K reverse J multiplied by the product of the Nk to the power nu second K. Nk is the number of mole per volume. Now, okay, this I know. I can measure them in my code. For example, locally, I know the concentration. I still need to find this and that. How do I find those? Well, K, F, J comes from the kinetic experts, and I tell you it's written like this. It's a constant which we call the pre-exponential constant. You see, the people in the combustion community have a very strong imagination. Why is it called the pre-exponential constant? Well, because afterwards you have an exponential. Exponential minus Ej divided by RT. And quite often you also have here a temperature dependence, T to the power beta J. So this is the activation temperature. And this is the temperature exponent. All these terms are accepted now by the whole community here, on this Earth at least. So I've shown you some of these schemes before. Let me show one again. How do you get those things if you need to study those things? Well, people have done it for you. This is a chemical scheme under a format which is called the Chemkin format. So you have the name of the reaction, tells you what it's doing. Then you have the pre-exponential constant, A, this is this number. Then you have the temperature exponent, B, which is beta here. Then you have the activation energy. Life would be simple, except those guys are using non-international units, but that's not the problem. In any case, if you want to do chemistry, you need to go somewhere in this world and find someone who can give you the list of these constants. Once you have the list under this format is called the Chemkin format because it was developed at Sandia National Lab maybe 30 years ago. Everyone in the world now is using the same format. The problem is that for many chemical reactions, we know the chemical scheme, and so we can get that from the web anywhere. And for some reactions, we don't. It's easy to imagine here that if you're looking at hydrogen plus oxygen, it's a rather simple chemistry. But even for that, there are questions. If you talk about gasoline for your car, for example, we don't even know how many reactions we have. People don't agree whether they have 3,000, 4,000 reactions, etc. So chemistry is a never-ending story. Basically, you always try to get the best reactions you have here. Chemistry also is a kind of dangerous game. If you look at these numbers here, you got 10 to the power 23, 10 to the power 17, and you see you're playing with exponentials everywhere. So basically, it's a difficult game. You can very easily get into difficult problems when you start talking about chemistry. But anyway, for us, the important thing is that we know KFG now. We can plug that into our code. And we still need to find the reverse constant here. The reverse constant, you have heard about it before. There's the way to find it, which is the equilibrium constant of the reaction. We know for any reaction that there is a link between the reverse and the forward reaction, which is the equilibrium constant. And this constant, again, is something which is given to you by people doing thermodynamics. You don't have to worry about it. This is something you know. For a given reaction, you know the expression of K of T. So you see now you have everything. From here you have KFG, from here you have KRG. You plug it to here, gives you the QJ. The QJ goes here, gives you the omega.kj. You sum them, you get omega.k, and you're done. You have closed this equation. You know how to solve it on the paper. In practice, we'll see that it could be a more difficult game. So now I have derived n equations here. Before that, I gave you continuity and momentum, which has 4. So I've got n plus 4. I still need the last equation to close my problem, and it's energy. Why do I keep the energy as the last equation? Because it's the most difficult, of course. So this is what we're going to do now. So energy, the problem with combustion is that there are just too many of these energies and enthalpies. So I'm going to do a small table for you. And get some clarification regarding names. So the first thing is that we split the variables themselves in two big classes. The first one is energies. The second one is enthalpies. So energy, enthalpy. In combustion, we have many different forms of them. Let me start here by something we'll call the sensible plus chemical. This is the one I have defined before. It's H equals sum of the HK YK on all species. But for many applications, working with enthalpy is not the easiest thing. It's easier to work with energy. Enthalpy and energy, you've heard about that before. You know that you go from enthalpy to energy by removing P over rho. Okay, so an energy, for example, typically an energy here, E, is equal to H minus P over rho. So here we have an energy, sensible plus chemical, which is called E, which is H. Let's call it H minus P over rho. Now, I've also told you that we can work only with a sensible enthalpy, which is Hs, which is integral of T0 to T of Cp dt. And those of you who have done some aerodynamics, they know people like to talk about total quantities, total energy, total enthalpy. How do you get total quantities in classical aerodynamics? You add the kinetic energy. So if you go from here to there, you add 1/2 ui square, and you get to what we'll call total quantity. In combustion, total for us will be including chemical and kinetic energy. So typically here, we'll have ET equal E, this one, plus 1/2 ui square. And this is the total energy. So, and of course, if you want to write equation, you can also write an equation for the temperature. You can write an equation for the entropy, etc. I'm not going to care about those for the moment. I will travel there. So basically, I will start here, show you the equation for this guy, then for this one, then for this one, then for this one, and then for temperature. In combustion codes, you find codes working with this equation, some working with this one, with this one, with this one, or with temperature. It's mixed everywhere. There is no defined, clear rule on which equation should be used for energy. It depends on the cases. So you need to know how to go from one to another. And you will see that they look similar. And I see a lot of students coming to me asking, why is this term like this here and not like this in another equation? Normally, there's no problem. You just need to know where you are in this table. So let's start with the first equation. The starting equation, the best place to start is total energy. Because the equation for total energy is simple. It's rho d over dt of the total energy. Okay, let's make my E clear. So that's the derivative, the total derivative of the energy in a reacting flow with all the terms. It's due to two things. The heat flux minus d over dxi of qi. This is the heat flux. By the way, it's not this Q. Huh? Here, this should be a big Q. Don't get confused. This is the Q which is here is not this Q here. And a second term, which is d over dxj of sigma being the tensor, the stress tensor that we mentioned a few minutes ago. And that's all. That's all there is in this equation. So that's a good equation because it's very simple. Sigma, I have told you before what it was. Let me tell you what this thing is. The heat flux is this term. And this term is nice. That's the one you know. It's the gradient of temperature. So you see, if you plug that guy here, you just have a Laplacian expression of the temperature, like in the heat equation. So that's cool. Unfortunately, in combustion, the heat flux comes also from other terms. So I'm going to write it here. So there's an additional term, which is due to the diffusion velocities. So it's sum on k equal 1 to n of yk hk vki. So why do we have this term? This term is there because if the species diffuse, if I put hydrogen here, and it's diffusing towards you because of molecular diffusion, it's also carrying with it its own enthalpy. And so you need to account for that. This is, you can see here, hk is the enthalpy of species k, so we need to put it in the heat flux. Again, I'm not going to derive this equation. You can go back to textbooks to do that. I don't think it's needed at the point. So that's the equation you will find in certain codes. People are working with this equation. Now I want to go now and show you what the equation will be for E, the energy. To do that, to go from ET to E, the difference between the two is 1/2 ui squared, which is the kinetic energy. So we need an equation for the kinetic energy, which is 1/2 ui squared. Well, this is why I kept this one. No, I didn't keep it. Okay, I'm going to rewrite it. We start from momentum. Momentum equation is written like this. It was on the board 5 minutes ago. Okay, this is the momentum equation. If you multiply it by ui on both sides, you can integrate it right away to give you rho d over dt of 1/2 ui squared equal ui d over dxj of sigma ij. The nice thing about this notation is that it gives you a very compact formulation for that. So now it's easy. You just subtract this thing from this one, and you can get the expression for E, the conservation equation for E. So let me make some place here. If I just write E equal to ET minus 1/2 ui squared, I can compute rho dE dt by saying it's rho det dt minus 1/2 rho d ui squared dt. And if you do that, rho det dt, you have it here. You find minus the heat flux. The heat flux remains there. And then when you subtract this guy, you see that some terms are going away. Ui dxj of sigma, you can combine it with this one, and you are left with only one term here, which is sigma ij dui dxj. And it's a classical question also of students coming and saying, why is the sigma within the derivative or is it in front of the derivative? The answer is, well, it depends. If you work with the total energy, the sigma is within. If you work with the energy, not the total energy, the sigma is in front of the gradient. No problem. You just need to derive the equation to see that. Certain codes, certain people get confused after that, and they start mixing those things. Just want to make sure, if you're using a code, especially if it's not a well-known code, make sure that if people tell you they're using energy, they're using the right terms on the right-hand side. So, okay, I've done this pass now. I'm here. I want to go here and write an equation for H. Well, it's the same idea. H, the enthalpy, is linked to E by this relation. So I can differentiate this equation to obtain the following one. dE dt, so E is H minus P over rho, which means that dE dt is dH dt minus 1 over rho dP dt and plus P over rho square d rho dt. So same idea. I know what dE dt is. It's this guy. So I can find dH dt. Okay? I just say dH dt equal that plus these two terms. And let's go. In this equation, there's one term which is not pleasant, which is this term. This is where I use the continuity. I took it out here. Remember the continuity equation. In this notation, the continuity equation was very simple. It was saying rho d rho dt equal minus rho dui dxi. So if you do that, you obtain the following equation for h dh dt equal, there's a rho in front of it, like the other equations, and you find the following terms. So it's dp dt minus the heat flux, this one you need to keep, and plus tau ij dui dxj. Again, why is there tau here? Because it gets combined with the other guys, and I don't want to go into the derivation. It takes 2 lines. But you find another expression for an enthalpy equation. And again, like always, people come and say, why is it a tau or is it a sigma? Well, it's a sigma in E and it's a tau in H. That's all it is. And now you see, now you have the pressure here. You start seeing the pressure term. Okay, I'm here now. I want to go here. I want to go to HS. To do that, I need to do the same exercise again. I need to write H equal HS plus sum of the delta Fk0 Yk. That's the definition of the link between the enthalpy and the sensible enthalpy. So you differentiate this thing. Again, rho dh dt equal rho dhs dt plus these terms. And I'm just going to write the final result there on the board, because this is where things get probably closer to what you will see or need to see today. Okay, the equation for HS, the sensible enthalpy, is the following. The changes of HS are due to heat flux, and that's the normal heat flux, you know, d dx over lambda dt dxi. So that's the normal flux of temperature. That's in the heat equation. Then we have a second term which is not so nice, which is d over dxi of rho, sum of the hsk yk vki, not a pleasant view, plus tau ij dui dxj, this one has not changed recently, plus dp dt, and for the first time we see a term called omega dot t prime. No, not prime, omega dot t. So all these terms have been defined except this one. What is omega dot t? Omega dot t is the heat release. Okay, omega dot t, its expression is the following. It's minus sum of the formation enthalpies, delta HFK0, omega dot k. So now just a comment here. There are n reaction rates for the species. Okay? There are n values, n reaction rates for species. There's only one heat release. When heat is released, it goes into the temperature, and there's the same temperature for everyone. So there is only one omega dot t. Okay? And it's this term which is going to be very large. In this equation, when you have combustion, the main term is really this term. This term is the one creating the heat increase and the temperature increase of the sensible enthalpy. Okay, there's a last step I want to do now, which is to go from HS to temperature. because temperature is really the equation probably that you expect to see with combustion. So I'm just going to write it here. This is again an interesting step. I invite you to take a look at it. It takes a few lines, I would say. It was actually part of the control 4 years ago. And the result is rho Cp dt dt. So that's really now the increase of the temperature equal d over dxi of lambda dt dxi, the heat flux by diffusion. Then we have the pressure term. Then we have the power of the viscous stress tensor. Then we have this term that we don't really like, but it's there, dt over dxi rho sum of the vki yk cpk. And then we have a reaction term here, omega dot t prime. Omega dot t prime is almost the same as omega dot here, but not exactly. It's minus sum of delta hfk 0 plus hsk omega dot k. Okay, it's finished. It's like when you are, at the dentist working on your teeth. It's finished. Now you got the worst is behind you. This is the most complex one we will write during this course. Okay, so let me summarize where we are now. This is the general equation which gives you temperature in any flame, okay? Except if it is supercritical or if it is the detonation or something like this. But for most flames you will have to handle, this is a general equation. You can see a lot of heat source or heat sink terms on the right-hand side, and you're going to take care of them one after the other. The most important one is this one. This is the heat release. Now again, in terms of notation, the term heat release can designate either this term or this one. And they are not equal. So if tomorrow you are doing some work for a company where they ask you to compare reaction rates, you have to ask them which one, this one or this one. They are not equal in the general case. These terms here comes from the problem of the diffusion velocities, which I have mentioned before. This term here is interesting. This term is the power corresponding to the viscous stress. This is the pressure increase. This is the heat diffusion. And with that, I have finished the general equation forms. So now I'm going to... I went basically up the hill. I am at the highest point now. Everything I'm going to do now is going to be in the direction of simplifying these equations to solve them. And probably not to this time, but next time we'll have a complete solution for these equations. So the first thing I want to do is to look at this equation here and try to do a first simplifications. Especially for deflagration. Deflagration, which are most flames that you will have to handle in the civil domain, they are flows where the Mach number is not large. I've told you, for example, a typical flame speed for hydrocarbon is typically 1 meter per second. When these flows are not large, these velocities are not large, the consequence is that the pressure usually is almost constant. And I will demonstrate that later. That means that if I look at this equation here, there's one term for deflagration which I can suppress, which is this guy. I won't need this guy because it will be small in the examples I'm going to do. There's another term which is going to go away fast. It's this guy here. The viscous stresses, you know what these things do. when you get a re-entry problem, for example, when the shuttle comes back to Earth, this term is large. This is the heating of the shield, you know, and this heating comes because this term here, tau ij dui dxj, changes like the Mach square or something like this. In other words, if the Mach number is large, like in a re-entry problem, you get a Mach number of 10, you will have a very large effect of this term. But if you have in a low speed flow, this term is going to be extremely small. The example you can have, you know, is that if this term would be large in your everyday life, it would be enough in the morning to turn your coffee to make it warm. Okay? It does not happen. So this term in practice, when the velocities are small, this term is small. So it's going to be very small in our deflagration. That means I will also cancel this one. So this equation starts being a little bit easier to handle, a little bit. Okay, having said that, I'm going to proceed now to the first cases where we're going to actually solve this equation. This is what I've called solving canonical problems for combustion. So this is what we're going to do now. Canonical problem is a nice name to say problems you can solve, you know, because there are so many problems we cannot solve. So I want to talk about why we are interested in these canonical problems. At this point, you could take these equations and believe that if you take a commercial code in which these equations are coded, then you can just, you know, go ahead and use the code. In practice, it won't happen. In certain fields, like if you need to compute the new building here, you can use a commercial code, not understand anything about structure, just plug it in from the CAD data, the shape, and then you get the answer. For combustion, it just doesn't work. If you give a combustion code to someone who does not understand combustion, generally the result you're going to get is going to be crap. You cannot use it. So you need to understand what's going on. So we need to do simple cases. I'm going to show you a few simple examples. For example, zero-dimensional problems. You can, in combustion, imagine zero-dimensional problems, so typically homogeneous boxes where only time is evolving. And then I will come to more complex problem, which is the one-dimensional laminar premix flame, which is really the prototype of combustion science. It's been there for more than a century. People have been working a lot on that, so I will derive all the structure here so that finally we solve the complete problem in one case. Of course, it's a simple case, but you will see that from this simple case, you will understand a lot of things on the structure of combustion.